Hi there, and welcome back to the Soul Healing series. Today we are honored with the presence of Sharona Stillerman, who is currently living in Israel, and she has been meditating with Brahma Kumari's University for many, many years. We already had one discussion with Sister Sharona last week. And I'm very grateful for the clarity that she brought on the subject of completely removal of anger. And thank you, Sharona, for explaining some of the reasons why there is still anger. You mentioned, of course, we have certain expectations from us and from others. And we also may be triggered by situations that are pointing towards injustice. And you also brought up this bigger picture. You said that we are angry because we cannot really see and understand the bigger picture, where the soul is so much more and different from the body, from the personality that we are experiencing on a daily basis. And you also touched on the subject of the Supreme Soul, the one that can heal and can help us in our endeavor of removing anger. So today we continue our discussion, and very simple questions from those who are watching and doing the course of removing anger. One initial question is, okay, I am doing that with good results. I feel I am improving. However, things are happening. And in particular, someone asked about having an accident. Someone whom I know is harmed. How can I keep that good inner stage of peace and happiness when something happens around me? It can be anything. What would be your practical solution to that?
Greetings of peace, Johanna, as well as the lovely audience that will be watching this. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity to meet you and be with you. This is a very practical question. It puts into question the value of happiness and peace. Because until we recognize its value and its power, we look around us and often as not wonder, how can I be happy in this or that situation? As if happiness and peace don't have a particular contribution, and so it can be dismissed. I'd like to share a story with you, a real life story. There's a war going on between Israel and Palestinians. And both sides are suffering so much. This story is not to exemplify one side as being more right than the other or suffering more than the other. It's just to exemplify something which I'm sure both peoples on both sides, somewhere among those communities, understand a particular thing about happiness. I know this story from the Israeli side. I'm sure there would be many from the community in Palestine who also know this secret. In this war, hostages were taken from Israel, and one of them was a young woman, about 25 years old. And she was released after a month and a half, and she shares her experience. And her experience, among other things, is that she always felt that there were angels around her, and she always felt protected. And so the interviewer asked her, "What do you mean? I mean, who are these angels?" And then the young woman said that while she was there, she didn't know. She just enjoyed the experience. But when she came back, she learned that her mother, from the day that the daughter had been taken away, her mother invited friends over, friends of the mother, to be together. And every day for 2 or 3 hours, they were together. And originally, in the first day or two, the friends came over and just cried. They spent 2 or 3 hours crying and distressing. And the mother of this young woman told them very explicitly that that's not why you're here. That's not why I've invited you, because that's the energy my daughter's going to be picking up, which is no help to her. And this mother said, we're going to sing and we're going to dance and we're going to be happy, because that's the energy my daughter needs right now. And when the daughter heard this story, she said, those were the angels. So this is a kind of long way of saying that happiness is a power. First and foremost, it's an energy. And its power is, especially when it's genuine, it's to uplift, it's to reassure, it's to comfort, in the way that when we're sad or depressed, we don't go to a sad or depressing movie, and we don't go spend time with friends who are sad and depressed. We look around for a happy movie, and we look around for a friend who's in a good mood, because that uplifts, secures, reassures. And actually, you might have heard that happiness is actually a therapy. There are people in hospitals, they are hired, they are clowns, professional clowns, and they go around the wards, especially of young children, because it's understood that happiness is a higher frequency energy and it cancels out the lower. So we really have to seriously ask ourselves what we're doing when something happens and it's a shock, it's a surprise, it's painful, or it's worrisome. But what are we doing if we allow ourselves to sink down into that energy? Because originally, the original nature of us souls is that energy of happiness. If you don't believe that, because you might be somebody who's trafficked with depression and anxiety or stress for such a long time, you can hardly believe that the original makeup of you, the soul, is happiness. Just see why it is we always prefer happiness to anger or grief and sorrow. We prefer it because that's what we're made of. In the same way that your body, our bodies are 90% water, they say. That's why we have to drink water. And if our water levels start to go down, we get thirsty because we need water in order for the body to be well. So in the same way, we seek happiness. We don't seek sorrow, because happiness is what we're actually made of. And if it lessens, we know that something is wrong. So when something happens, to understand these things actually means to work with the larger picture, like we talked about last week. It's a power, and I need to find one way or another to bring myself into, if not happiness, which is a more convoluted frequency, actually. It might be harder to access if I've not woven a path to it previously, then at least peace. Don't entertain that sorrow or that grief or the way the world teaches us to react, or I should say respond, because it's not food for the soul. In fact, anything besides that peace and that happiness, which are entry points to stability, centeredness, your own wisdom, knowing the best thing to do, really being able to be of help to others. Anything else is toxic to our system. And it's not because we're used to being toxic that that's okay, or that's healthy, or that it's not that we can't do better.
Yes, you are also answering another question, which was how can we impact others in a positive way? So you are saying with this energy of peace and happiness, we are creating that positive influence when someone else is worried or concerned. Would you like to add anything on how we can help others, whether they know it or they don't know that we are helping? And how far can we reach out? You are mentioning upheaval at the level of a nation, of a country. Is it in our part where we are? We are in other countries. I believe that to remove anger at individual level, we are also working at collective level. No one can say I'm free from anger, but others may be in sorrow and anger in another part of the world. There is a responsibility somehow. There is a sense of wanting everyone to be happy.
That's so beautiful. And I think you're right that anybody listening to a kind of emission like this would probably be feeling a connection to the sorrow and suffering going on. And I know as a child growing up, it was the cause of my depression. I could not understand all the sorrow and suffering in the world. I could not understand it, and I could not abide by it. I could not accommodate it. I didn't understand how I could have fun and be happy while so many were in poverty, suffering, didn't have enough to eat, all of these things. So it's a very big question. And I think it's become kind of like fashionable, especially among the New Age circles, to talk about the light and how in this era of darkness, because the New Age movement, there's a whole population in every country who has begun to talk about these times as an era of darkness, not reserved for one country or another, but as if the whole world is entering this era of darkness. And they're talking about how the remedy, the solution is to bring light. And on a most surface level, we understand that that light is the energies of my peace, my centeredness, my stability, my principles, my values, and I'm acting from that. And further, it would be my happiness, my joy. This is a contribution to what otherwise is an era of darkness. And the picture, the idea is that night doesn't last forever. The day always comes. And often they say the darkest hour is just before dawn. And so there would be people in every country, all four corners of the planet, who've understood that the question here is not when will this era of darkness end? When will the light come? It's not even for them. Will this era end, or will the light come? The question is, the real question is, who's going to bring this light? Who's going to bring this light? Is it going to be our politicians? With apologies to any of you listening who's a politician. Is it going to be our lawyers, our doctors, our educators, our business people? No. The era of darkness is an era where we're seeing so much corruption and anger and fear, even amongst the rulers. So who's going to bring this light? It's going to be us. It's going to be anybody who raises their hand in front of God and says, I would like to help you finish this night of humanity and start the day. But here's the thing, Johanna, and this is why I talk about the New Age movement with some people having this understanding. It's to say that's not enough. That's not enough to just understand these things and use the words and sit, because the idea is to sit in meditation, in yoga, and in some way or another generate this light and contribute it. But that's not what's going to move the night into the day. It's not going to bring the dawn. So what is? This light, meaning this peace and this happiness that we're talking about, has to be the raw, pure, true energy of peace or happiness. It can't be a happiness that comes from the incredibly good chocolate cake in my refrigerator, or the happiness of a beautiful party I went to last week with a lot of good friends. It can't be the happiness of getting a new position at my job. This does not nurture the original nature of the self. Why? Because the original self is not physical. And any happiness triggered or generated or emerged through something physical doesn't even touch the energy within that I'm saying we're made of, let alone nourish it. See? So we're talking about a happiness, and actually the New Age talks about sitting and meditating. That's what they do. They meditate and they have yoga in order to generate this light. I'm talking about a light that doesn't come from meditation, doesn't come from yoga, but it comes from remembrance. In the Brahma Kumaris, we don't use the word meditation. We don't meditate here. We remember a completely different part of ourself. In English, human being. We need to connect with the being, not the human part of me. The human part of me is filled with all sorts of energies, the original energies of my divinity, being a child of the Supreme. Those have gotten all mixed with all sorts of other energies as I've forgotten who I really am. And so I started turning outwards more and more for a bit of happiness, that chocolate cake, for example, for a bit of love, for a bit of peace, nice walk in the countryside. There's nothing wrong with the chocolate cake or a walk in the countryside or an evening with good friends. But if I cross a line and I begin to depend on those things for my peace and my happiness, then that dependency weakens the pathway to those energies which actually I'm made of. They're sitting inside me as a being, a divine child of the Supreme Being. So it's those energies, the raw, pure divinity inside my being, which will bring that light of a new day for the whole world, the whole of humanity, not just me. And so it's a question of raising my hand to this understanding that anytime I'm angry or distressed or unhappy, I'm contributing to the darkness of the night and enabling it to be prolonged, to continue. But in my life, in my relationships, in the way I'm taking up my responsibilities, can I learn a way of remembering? It means tapping into the raw being, the original being, and bringing those energies into old attitudes, old programmings and conditionings, and uplifting, reassuring, stabilizing my own self first on these much higher levels. Because to genuinely help someone else with this energy of happiness or peace, I have to be in them myself. Means not affected, not influenced, but very versed, very experienced in my original nature, in my divinity. And I'll add one more word to it. In a relationship with my eternal self. So all of these things belong to the larger picture, which what a good spiritual study should provide for us.
Yes, thank you. Very clear and beautifully said. Let us focus on the remembrance of the true self, of our original qualities, and in particular to experience who we truly are. There is a need to develop our ability of self-observation. And this may be one other reason why anger and other negative habits are still there. Despite of our desire to be in the light and our efforts to be happy, without a minute self-observation skill, we are missing whatever is there in the impurities of the soul. You mentioned last time that impurities are coming up. So I would suggest in the time remaining now, if you would like to zoom in your practice to observe what is happening in the self and separate whatever is temporary to that which is eternal, and know how to let go of that which is not positive. And also, if you would like to give all of us a focus until next week, a practice, a simple practice that may start at the level of thought, of observing where am I and what is coming up and how I can heal that immediately.
Well, I'm going to suggest something, Johanna, and you can tell me if this moves along the lines you're describing. Because positivity is an energy, and it's very nourishing to the soul. It actually even helps the brain become more elastic. The studies show us it actually has an effect on the brain, and we need elasticity if we're changing programmings and conditionings. So a very simple exercise is at night before you go to bed, think of 10 things that you're grateful for. Grateful, appreciation. These are entry points into this extremely important energy called positivity. Eventually, they lead to the wonderful original qualities like peace or happiness, but they are very easy to get a handle on. What are you grateful for? What do you appreciate? And this can be as simple as that chocolate cake in your refrigerator, whatever. But 10, list them. 10 things that you are grateful for or you appreciate. I like the color of these curtains. I love that kind of rusty gold. And that was a great chocolate cake I had last night. Whatever. Feed that to yourself. And in the morning, 10 more things. Give yourself 5 minutes before you wake up, before you get out of bed, just to also reflect 10 things, even if it's just looking around your room and appreciating or enjoying anything in the room. But 10 things, and they have to be different. And then every hour, 5 things that you appreciate or you're grateful for, and they have to be different each time. So again, there's no lack of things. Look around, look out the window. Remember a last walk you had. But start feeding the brain and the self, the being, the soul, this energy at its most simple form. And there will be wonderful results, just even from that. I don't know, does that help, Johanna?
I am very grateful for the clarity that you are bringing to this subject, grateful for your company and for the opportunity to be with others as well. So, yes, it's a wonderful occasion to connect the mind, as you said, with what we have in life, not what we are missing or lacking. Let's have that vision for the world for a minute, in silence. Set a vision that the whole world is healed and there is no longer anger, and how beautiful our world will be when anger is removed and when peace and happiness prevail. Let's create such a minute, and we will churn, we will think of what you told us today, and meet again next week to tap into more of these positive vibrations and to be that. So let's finish with 1 minute, and thank you very much, Mr. Sharon. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.